they would kind of get whiplash. Like, why would you claim that? But we got to claim it in this environment. And the other thing I'll say is, on the political side, we've got to recognize that it truly is the case in today's environment that all politics that will matter in the near future are local. Don't expect anything at the national level. But what you do to influence who's in your city government, who's in your state government, that will matter in the next 4 to 5 years more than what happens at the federal level. So organizing locally around your interests, making it clear what those are, and being uncompromising when you choose who to support in the next elections is what we should be doing, in my view.
So we got sort of make sure that we got this right. So one is really thinking about not being afraid to take a stance. 2, recognizing that our institutions are under attack, and not being afraid to do part of that activism. And then 3, understanding how much more, because of the larger political strategy that's happening, how much more local and state politics or what have you is going to happen more and more. In fact, and being prepared for that eventuality. So I want to talk on the topic a little bit of legacy from the context of leadership. We know you're making men of consequence at Morehouse, and it's become, and it's become public of your coming retirement. What do you believe will be your legacy as president at Morehouse?
Okay, so there's a new book out about the history of Morehouse. It's called The Cross, the Candle, and the Crown. It's written by a professor some of you may have had, Barksdale. He taught history. So he delayed publication of the book so he could write the last chapter, which includes me. My chapter is not very flattering. He points out that after my first speech, the conclusion was that I was not, up to the job because I didn't sound like any of the great Morehouse presidents who were amazing orators. Benjamin Mays, Robert Michael Franklin. We've had a lot of clergy. He said, so people walked out and said, he's just a regular guy. Yeah, that's what he said. He said he's an everyman. So he also in the book has someplace where he says, he's talking about me, after I declared we're going to do this $500 million capital campaign, Men of Consequence, and brought in the Robert Smith $34 million gift. He said, well, what history will say is Mays built men, Gloucester built buildings, Thomas built an institution. And, I think the path I've been on is to create the Morehouse that will be stronger at its 200th anniversary than it's been at either the 100th or the 150th. And that will have an impact on the 21st century equal to its impact on the 20th century, which is a tall order. But you can't write the history of the 20th century without writing about Morehouse. If you write an honest history, you just can't. If for no other reason than you gotta write about Martin Luther King. Some people know Martin Luther King because he know Morehouse because King went to Morehouse. What people have to realize is without Morehouse, there would be no King. That was not an accident of history that he went to Morehouse and became who he was. And we've got some kings on the campus right now. That's why I get up and go to work every day. I know that one of those 2,500 young men will be my king. I don't know who he is. King was not an athlete, so I can't go find a gladiator. He was a C student, so I can't cherry pick the Phi Beta Kappas. Right? You know, that's the way I look at Morehouse. One of those brothers will be my king. And of the almost 7,000 or 8,000 I've touched in my 7 years there, somewhere among them is my king. That's how we got up. That's how I operate. You know, building a strong institution and some of you heard me. You know, if you read our strategic plan, buried in it is my vision for the school. And what I say is that Morehouse will be the premier liberal arts institution in the world, attracting and educating Black men and other men who share our values. And just to give you some evidence that we might be on our way, and some of you who were at church today heard me say this, we did a study of the top 40 liberal arts undergraduate programs in the country and Morehouse. Combined, the top 40 in us, there are only 4,800 Black men enrolled in all those programs. 4,800 Black men from the entire nation. 2,500 of them are at Morehouse. That means we're educating something like 83% of all the Black men in top-notch liberal arts programs in this country. Mm-hmm. And that includes places like Amherst, Williams, Bowdoin, Hamilton. You know, you go down the line. Most of those schools have billion-dollar endowments. But we're educating, you know, something like 83-85% of those Black men. And it's from those schools and Morehouse that young men like many of you find their ways into top-notch graduate schools, top-notch career opportunities that overdetermine that you'll be influential and be in a position to shape other people's lives, right? So that's us, right? That's what I want to be my legacy. You know, I was talking to Emerson, who's a very impressive guy. He's applying to Morehouse College. It is tougher to get into Morehouse College today than it has ever been. Right? The demand for us is just through the roof. We're oversubscribed the last 2 years. And oversubscribed means that our own algorithm for estimating how many students will accept our offer is off. We're undershooting ourselves in our algorithmic expectations. And I kept trying to tell my staff, hey, you guys need to get ready for rich people problems. I've been in a lot of places that have rich people problems. I know what it looks like when they're coming, and they're coming to Morehouse. Rich people problems. You know, part of that is mobilizing our community to support us in a way that helps us solve those problems. We could easily go to 3,000 students as opposed to 2,500 without sacrificing quality and admissions, but we need resources to do it. You know, the other thing in my legacy is I think in lots of ways we've changed the culture of Morehouse in terms of expectations. And one thing I'm proud of is the change in our alumni. Alumni giving is up in dollars, lagging in percentage, it's about 18%. My ambition was to get it to 40%. We're only at 18%. When I arrived at Morehouse, it was 13%. All my marketing friends say you have to think of it like consumer packaged goods. One more percentage of market share, and you celebrate, right? Mm-hmm. You know, same thing with alumni giving. You drive it up 1%, you celebrate. I'm like, no, Can't do the happy dance. You know, right? 20 is a realistic goal. And we're driving it up. Just this past Saturday, we had the Candle in the Dark. And if you haven't heard, we brought in over $6.8 million. The official number on social media is 6.8. Let me tell you what the sea change has been in the last 2 years. In the past, most of the money in Candle in the Dark came from corporations, not from our alumni. So corporations and white philanthropists actually owned that event, not our alums. Last year, our alums stepped up, and our lead sponsor was not Chick-fil-A, which it had been in the past. It was JME Enterprises, Javaro Edwards, some of you may know. His company is the lead sponsor. It's a $300 ticket, $300,000 ticket. So, and then Dale Jones gave the largest single gift of an alumni last year, $2.5 million he pledged. This year we went off the charts because Javaro was the lead sponsor again, pledged to be the lead sponsor for the next 3 years, okay? Which made his actual contribution, including what he gave this year, $1.2 million. Then Brian Rand, one of our Benny awardees, and an alum of either 2001 or 2002, I forget which, he pledged $1 million. And then Rashawn Williams, who I think is class of '99, Rashawn got up and what he said in the room was he was pledging the next 4 years of his income, his salary, to Morehouse. Well, we're all sitting there trying to get out, you know, we're trying to amortize it, like, what is that? I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, he's the owner of the Falcons. I know what it costs to join that. The way those club owners get their money is they get a dividend check every year. So I'm like, okay, I can figure out, you know, kind of what that is. So I was thinking that, and I didn't know his other gigs, what they might pay. So I'm thinking it's worth maybe $2 million. We put up $4.8 million as the estimate of what we had raised that night. Well, Rashawn, his wife, sat there and they did their calculation, comes back, it's $4 million. So he pledged $4 million. So Morehouse alum owned that night. Now they have to own the college. So, you know, it's kind of like people say to me, gee, you've raised of a $500 million goal, you've raised almost 350 million. We're at 330 right now. Where are you going to get the rest? I say, I know where to get it. They just got to write the check. Right? You know, we got to get behind it and support, you know, the mission and the dream. Right? And Morehouse is a revolutionary idea. Just like this country was a revolutionary idea in 1776, whenever it was, right? America was an idea that you could create a country with rule of law, guaranteed rights, et cetera, et cetera. No place on earth had ever done it. But it's become an idea that inspires the world. Morehouse is an idea, a revolutionary idea that you can produce black male excellence at scale and have black male excellence be an expectation, not an exception. You know, my guess is all of you in this room have had an experience and been treated like, as a black man doing what you do, talking like you talk, walking the world like you walk. People are like, wow, you're an exception. As opposed to creating the expectation for all black men. That's what we do. That's a revolutionary idea. We got to get behind it. So, you know, I hope my legacy is people look up and no president has to give this talk because Morehouse is off the charts and all the white money can dry up and the school won't miss a beat.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell you was such a perfect. It was, you kind of got ahead of my next question because I was going to ask you about, you know, you've been the largest fundraising president to date.
Even adjusting for inflation.
Even adjusting for inflation, you got to put that in there. You have an extensive background in business from HBS to McDonough. I'm a graduate of the Sloan School of Business. And we were talking earlier, we were talking about economic justice, entrepreneurship, job creation, wealth creation, and the capital needed to fund these type of institutions. You know, people my age, we call it securing the bag, right? Doing those things to make sure that you have the resources necessary. How, you know, from your background in business to what you've done fundraising, to even talking about those alumni giving and creating that economy within our alumni group, how have you looked at access to capital, which is elusive for entrepreneurs, which is elusive for black businesses, which is elusive for black, you know, historically black colleges? Where does access to capital play in the revolutionary fight to advance our community?
Well, the revolution may not be televised, but it must be paid for. So you got to fund it. You know, we have to find ways to fund it, first of all. What I think, and as you know, some of you may know, we've created an initiative at Morehouse called the Center for Black Entrepreneurship. And we got the initial grant from $10 million from Bank of America. We've also gotten millions of dollars from Visa and MasterCard. And I remember some people saying to me, well, why do you want to call it the Center for Black Entrepreneurship? Because, you know, that sounds, that sounds narrow, right? It's the center, as opposed to the entrepreneur, why don't you call it the Bank of America Entrepreneurship Center or Visa Entrepreneurship Center? And my view was, no, I'm unambivalently black. You gotta be unambivalently black. That's what this is about. And part of the idea behind it is we want to create an ecosystem. And I think what we need to create these flows of capital is an ecosystem around black entrepreneurship, black capitalism. And the good news is, and Morehouse is a great example in our community. You've got investors, you've got entrepreneurs with business ideas, right? You got bankers, you got people who are on all sides of that coin that influences who needs capital and who has ideas that deserve capital and who influences the flow of capital, what I call the capital allocators. And we need to connect to each other with this intent to breed black entrepreneurship, black capitalism, and figure out how we support each other. Because the way the world is networked. So, black venture capitalists also talk to white venture capitalists. And they sit in those rooms, and some of you have had this experience, where well-meaning white folks are wringing their hands about, well, we'd love to have some black folks, in our portfolio, but we don't know where they are. Well, if you're a venture capitalist, you're sitting with one of your white venture capital friends and you tell them about the great company that you and your wife are building, they're gonna say, oh, okay, right? And we create those networks and relationships. and we make them mutually reinforcing. That's what we have to intensify, right? Is creating the ecosystems, as opposed to thinking that, you know, these things kind of happen out of thin air. If you got funded, right, it's some kind of accident or miracle of your, you know, wife's good luck and intelligence, right? As opposed to, no, you know, it had to do with the fact that you knew Rashawn Williams, who is a venture capitalist and a Morehouse alum, and we're building that ecosystem. Right? We want to be an epicenter for that. That's what we need to keep ourselves, you know, alive. It's kind of like I talked today at Abyssinia about how the black church and historically black colleges are inextricably linked in what Dr. King would call a web of mutuality. Right? What happens to one affects the other and vice versa. We've got to operate that way. You know, I believe Morehouse, one, because of how our alumni are located in the economy, and most of our alums have a sense that they can and should provide leadership that benefits beyond their own well-being, but the community. And we can be at the center of that. So that's the way I think about it.
Such powerful stuff, just how the collective economics of our community could quite literally fund, you know, the things, the revolution, as you say. So my last question before we open it up to the audience, or we can decide if you guys want to network, depending on how y'all feeling. You know, at Abyssinia today, you talked about these choices that, you know, people make: college and partner, and your spouse are some of the most significant, two most significant choices that you make. And as leaders, you know, and as black male leaders, we're not just scholars and business folks and all that, but fathers and husbands and all these things. You mentioned earlier you got your second grandchild is on the way. How does family and spirituality and these parts factor into how you lead, and what would you leave other men who are masters of the world, these parts about these choices in our lives and how it affects the type of leaders we become?
Well, let me just start with on the choice of your spouse side. I just want to recognize my wife, who I met in 1973. 40 years of marriage. Her name is Willetta Lewis. And my youngest son, Nelson Thomas. He's now a New Yorker. Can't get him to move to Atlanta. You know, he makes too much money, so he's not drawn by a cheaper, you know, cost of living. But anyway, you know, the way I think about it, and you know, the way family factors into it, I just think about Morehouse. You know, I'm from a family of all boys. So I felt very comfortable coming to be president of Morehouse, even though I didn't go to Morehouse. And some people were not comfortable with that. Right? And I have two sons. So, you know, what I do at Morehouse, perfecting that idea of black male excellence, I know has repercussions, reverberations for my two sons who are out in the world. You know, my wife is the only girl in a 5-child family. All the others are boys, right? So There's something biographical about it. You know, I think part of, you know, what's also important is you and that your partner have to be on the same page about core values. You know, I've been very involved, very in the world, our entire relationship. And, you know, matter of fact, when my wife and I met, I told her we were going to wind up living in Cuba because I was going to be a revolutionary. I have to leave the country. Still, I was planning on going to Cuba this March. She didn't want to go. I thought we could retire in Cuba, smoke cigars. But at any rate, you know, I think it's creating harmony in your relationship with your biography, what motivates you. That's what I've tried to do with my choices in life. You know, even when I've made choices that didn't make any sense to anybody. Like when I left, I had been dean at Georgetown. I left Georgetown, went back to Harvard because I didn't think Georgetown supported my dream, which was to create a top 10 business school that had a faith base. Because I thought that would be powerful in the world. They weren't into it, so I said, okay, I can go back to a top 10 business school. Harvard offered me a job every year I was at Georgetown. I went back. When I left Harvard, some people came to me and said, why would you leave Harvard to go to Morehouse? And the answer was, I love Harvard, but it's not my biography. Right? It's my biography, you know. I let my wife boss me around because that's my biography. So I think, you know, that's a matter of creating harmony from within with how you manifest your outside.
Powerful stuff. I work with my wife, and it is quite a challenge. It has its beauty, but I think a lot of the reason why I want to ask a question about family and faith is because you see a lot of young men who think that, you know, the trappings of success, you know, that's it. And for men who I perceive do things that are transformative, there's a balance, there's this kind of roundness that's necessary in order to do that great work. And so I just want you to kind of speak to that. So now we'd like to open up to questions, or if you guys want to network, you can.
Questions in the back.
Yeah.
Khalil Bird, I'm a 90, class of 90, 91 graduate. Pleasure sitting here with my Catholic brothers who are also graduates from Morehouse. Pleasure to meet. So, first of all, unambiguous thank you for your leadership, as I told you earlier. And when I describe you to people, I actually describe you, as I told you, based on your book, Breaking Through. You made your name as a researcher and a thinker in the area of diversity. And Breaking Through told you that it's going to take you longer for your career to develop as a Black leader, and you needed more support in order to get up there. And so just like that, it was a very good lesson that I got early in my career. So retirement for very successful people often means another year.
Another year?
Another
shift.
Another thing that you are moving into. That's more energy. What is the book that you think is essential to right now, or the area of research that you are going to hopefully guide and lead, that needs to be put on the table right now? What do we need to know?
It's a good question. I've been thinking about that because I do plan to write. I'm going to write a book about the challenges of being a transformational leader, or trying to be a transformational leader. In particular, so I'm also a psychoanalyst by training. So in particular, I'm going to write about the psychodynamics of that. So, and it won't be absent considerations about race. For example, when I got to Georgetown, I was the first, maybe the second black dean in the history of Georgetown. Everybody was kind of nervous. I had a black chief of staff, young, brilliant guy, came very close to. And he had an idea about what it meant to be deanly, right? And, he thought that it meant, you should be exalted, right? So, he would tell me, you don't act enough like a dean. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you're very accessible. And, basically, people aren't respectful enough because they're not begging me for access to you, because they can access you directly. And I stopped him one day and I said, hey, Matt, you don't understand black power. Black power scares white people.
Yes.
If I acted like what you see, because you're looking at the white models of deans, it would scare these guys because they're scared of black power, right? And they would objectify me in a way where, the stones and arrows would come at a speed that you could not catch them, right? That's a psychoanalytic analysis. The fear of black power and how you manage that if you're a black man trying to lead. And then you have the psychodynamics of being a black leader in a black institution, right? And what that puts on you. Because black people are messianic, right? And they expect black leaders to be messiahs. And, all of us are in the world because we had fathers and mothers who were human. We didn't have virgin births, so we're not going to be the Messiah. And you got to manage that. So I'm going to write about transformation in white and black environments and the difference if you're a black leader. That's one book. The other book I'm going to write about is, my son Nelson and I have talked often about writing a book together. And we didn't get it off the ground, but I started writing. Some of you know Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he wrote a book called Between the World and Me, right? So now I'm trying to write a book that is a letter to my kids, and in particular a letter to my sons about life, where I'm going to talk about all kinds of, touchy stuff, right? Like what's not easy, about, being in this world. I have a daughter too. She only takes my advice when she asks for it. So she probably won't read my book. I have a son who's older than Nelson. He'll critique my book. And then 3 years later tell me, I reread your book and you were right. Thought you were wrong. So I'm writing that. I'm going to start a small consulting practice focused on consulting to, advising new leaders to institutions that I think matter in the world. So colleges, universities, and large nonprofits that do significant work. Because nothing prepares you for these jobs until you're in them. And from that, there'll probably be a book. Right, I have some ideas about that. You know, some are small things like taking charge. You know, so, other questions? You calling or am I?
Courtney Booker, 1986 graduate of Morehouse. My question is about, as the world gets smaller, what are our efforts with respect to CARICOM and the continent? What are our efforts in recruiting students from the Caribbean and Africa as part of our future for Morehouse, as well as Black students in Europe?
So there's going to be a new president, but if he plays the song like I wrote it, in our strategic plan, we've set the goal to make Morehouse's student body 10% international. We haven't made enough headway in that, but we're working on it. So for example, just this past October, I helped to headline a conference in the Bahamas called the Black Men's Empowerment Summit, first ever in the world. And we're doing an MOU with the Bahamas to facilitate students from the Bahamas coming to Morehouse. We've been asked by alumni who live in Jamaica to do the same thing. We're also cultivating some very wealthy people on the continent of Africa to fund students who want to come to Morehouse. We had that a few years ago before I got there, and the college mismanaged the relationship. That was with Strive Masio, who's one of the richest men in the world, African entrepreneur, philanthropist, he and his wife. And we just botched it. To the point where when I got to Morehouse, Strive wouldn't even meet with me. He had lost such confidence in the college. But we're fixing that. So I think that has to be a priority, which is why I put it in the strategic plan. We not only need to focus on sending our students global, we need to be global at home. And it's part of our students being exposed to the diversity of Black people in the world, not just in the United States. So we're working on it. And now under the Andrew Young Center, we actually have a group of people for whom that's part of their job every day, to work that international pipeline. And in admissions, we just hired an international recruiter, and we've already exceeded our application goal for international students. Last year, I think we had 10 applicants from outside who were truly international, meaning they didn't have a U.S. passport. This year, I think we're like at 150, right? Just by focus, just by having somebody who knows when they walk down the street and see me, I'm gonna ask them, how many international students are in the pool? How many did we admit? Makes a difference, focus, intentionality. So we're getting intentional about it.
We have to cut in right quick about the first break. Again, my name is Michael Bryan. I'm the Regional Vice President for the Northeast. And I want to introduce Kevin Johnson. You know, Dr. Kevin Johnson, you may not know. He's the pastor of Abyssinia Baptist Church. And he's the primary reason for Dr. Thomas for being here today. But just for you all to put context, Abyssinian and Morehouse has been in, as you know, the Black church. HBCU has always had a major connection. But in 1957, Adam Clayton Powell was the commencement speaker. And in that class was Maynard Jackson and Otis Moss. And so we presented Dr. Thomas with a picture today of Abyssinian, Adam Clayton Powell, and Benjamin Mays. So this is what we presented for you. So again, it's like history repeating itself. You have the president of Morehouse coming up to New York, and you have the pastor of Abyssinian. And so I want him to come up to bring a few words. As you know, he's taken the place of Calvin Butts. Many of you all probably knew Calvin Butts, and I'm sure he's probably looking for some new members from Morehouse. We'll say a couple of words.
Well, first of all, thank you all so much. Dr. Thomas did a great job, and I got to ordain him because people will join the church today. So I'm really thankful to him and thankful for Sister Lewis being here as well as Nelson. Let me just say that we are all standing up on great shoulders. This is my third time being at Abyssinian. I served as an intern and then served as assistant pastor, went to Philly and came back once they called me in June. And today was HBCU Sunday, so that's why I'm repping Morehouse today. Otherwise, I would have been in a suit. But I want y'all to know that you have a brother in Harlem. So if you're looking for a church, you're looking for a place to connect, I welcome you to join us there at Abyssinian. And I'm excited about what we're doing. I'm excited about being up on the church's legacy. And I'm really excited. I got brothers like Michael over here and Daniel over there, who are great members of our church. So come through. Service starts at 10 a.m. And thank you again, Dr. Thomas, for the privilege to come to share with us at Abyssinian today. You really did a great job, so let's hear it again.
And Dr. Thomas is holding that folder, but I thought he was going to do a plug for fundraising.
Yes.
Talking about the Morehouse of the future, because we've all experienced that, I don't know how you want to describe the housing. He's really transforming the housing situation at Morehouse and just the campus of the future. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
2 weeks ago, we broke ground on one of the major pillars of our capital campaign, which is called the Campus of the Future. And that's really about upgrading the infrastructure of the college, both in terms of technology and just the quality of the facilities. A major part of that is also the transformation of the physical campus. So we right now have bulldozers moving earth. If you remember where the tennis courts were, tennis courts going away. On top of that, right there, we're going to put the equivalent of 2 new dorms. It'll be one building with 2 wings, 340 beds, which will increase our bed availability by about 150. That's important because right now we're at 100% occupancy. And if we add in the demand, we're at about 124% of occupancy based on demand. Our students want to live on campus now. Campus is where it's at. We're also building a new state-of-the-art student center. And if you can't imagine, if you know where Hubert and White were, right across from Shivers, we're bringing those down. And in that space, we're going to build a 4-story student center that will be pointed toward the tennis courts. And then where those parking lots are, out there, parking lot B, right outside of White and going down to the tennis courts, that's all going to go away and be a green space that will be an equivalent size to the green space on Century campus. And if you think about Morehouse, right, we have 2,500 young men, and they don't have any grass to walk on. They can't walk on Century campus because it's sacred land. It's a graveyard, Civil War graveyard. So now they will have green space where they can do all kinds of the rituals of the college, like probates and all that. They can do outdoor theater, because part of it will be built in a kind of amphitheater style, outdoor amphitheater style. They'll be able to picnic.
for
You know, we'll probably have to put early curfews on Spellmanites. Like you ain't gotta go home, but you gotta get out of here. That space will be state of the art, and will transform the campus. And if you think about Morehouse College, any physical representation of it, you see what's the picture? It's always Graves Hall. No other building shows up in any picture where we're trying to give a physical representation of the college, right? So Graves Hall, built in 1889, has held that position for over 150 years. This campus of the future, this is a 150-year decision. The pictures you will see in 4 years will all be of the new campus. I won't be there to take them, but I guarantee you that's what will happen. And it will enhance the life of our students. In the student center will be all the eating and dining, bookstore, student-facing functions, as well as social space, study space, student success services will all be in that building. So I'm excited about it. Hopefully legacy-wise, they'll say Gloucester built buildings, they were all ugly. Thomas gave us the campus of the future. So we're excited about it. Our campaign in general, we have a $500 million goal. As I said, we're at about 330 million. We see our way clearly by the end of this academic year in June to about 350. There'll be another 150 million for the next president to raise to close it out. I've guaranteed or promised that, assuming the next president would want my help, I will stick around as a member of the faculty, teach, and help to close the capital campaign. And the bulk of what we've raised to this point, $200 million of it, is all devoted to student success, which means affordability and support for various kinds of opportunities like global travel, mental health. We've also raised a significant amount of money to support faculty research and faculty retention, and money for our centers of excellence. Those are the pillars of the capital campaign. And we've got, again, 150 million more to go. Also, on the campus of the future, there are a number of naming opportunities. You want to permanently put your name on a room, opportunities there. You want to, $40 million, you can put your name on the student center. On that one, I'll do give and get. Like if you can get your corporation to pick up the 40 and you give 50, I'll give you credit for the 40. Throw your name up on it. Like I say, imagine one of your, sons or grandsons coming on campus, going into one of the rooms in the student center, and there's your family name, right? He'll be able to say, that is us. Hopefully that motivates you. But that's where we are. I will say, some people look at being president and they say, oh, I couldn't be president. I say, why is that? They say, I can't stand asking people for money. It's one of the things I've loved about being president. Why? because those are the best opportunities to go out and tell people why I do this, right? To tell that story and watch people be drawn to it, drawn enough to dig deep, and to talk with alumni who, you know, drank the Kool-Aid of obligation a long time ago. Morehouse has been great at teaching obligation. Like, you are obligated because you go to Morehouse and go out and do something significant in the world. We've been terrible at teaching gratitude, meaning be grateful for the fact that if you hadn't gone to Morehouse, you couldn't go do that. And if we had taught better gratitude, we'd be a leader in alumni giving today. You know, matter of fact, I was talking to some of you there who were asking me, what have you learned? We were talking about alumni giving and the challenge of it. They said, yeah, I know. Well, you know, Morehouse doesn't cultivate a culture of giving. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, but you know, I went to such and such historically white institution, and from the day I stepped on campus, they were inculcating, you gotta give, you gotta give, you gotta give, you gotta give. And my guess is they did, right? You know, wrote a check to Columbia, but didn't write a check to Morehouse. Wrote a check to Harvard, didn't write a check to Morehouse. Because they created that culture of giving. Now we're trying to do that here. Right? And that's a culture shift. And getting to our number depends on that. Like I said, I know where the money is. Just got to get the checks. So,
What's the strategy? Let's give Dr. Thomas one more. Before we leave, on behalf of Art for Walls Gallery, we also have a presentation of artwork for you.
Oh, wow.
Creative, faithful, and diligent, and I found out today, revolutionary. Hope that you accept this gift.
fantastic. That's a gift for me.
That's it for you.
All right. I love it.
And we'll ship that as well.
Okay.
Also, the program for Candle in the Dark, if you take your picture, and then you can put that one. There's put your phone there, you can get the full program, I think it's like 40 pages. So we're gonna leave this out, so you can come up and use your phone, and you can take a picture, and all the program is in this scanned document. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your Sunday to join me here today. And again, I want to express again to Reverend Johnson my appreciation for the invitation and the convenience of being able to be at Abyssinia this morning and touch base with alumni this afternoon. Okay.
I can't do $1 million, but you will have $5,000 personally from me before you leave.
All right.
Is that camera that way? You got it.
Make sure you get those pictures out on social media.
So don't take the program, just take a picture of the scan if you want.
Now,
It's great. It's really network hang out. Yeah, you can show.
All right, y'all. So for all the alums, before we leave, y'all know how I go. We can't do this without a good old dear old Lord. So, have your brother.
Dear old Morehouse, dear old Morehouse, we have pledged our lives to thee, and will ever, yea forever, give ourselves in loyalty, true forever, true forever, to old Morehouse may we be, so to bind each son the other into ties more brotherly.
With reverence.
Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit.